Hey there guys, what's going on? Gale here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Persona 5X video, and today we are kickstarting off the build guides, and today's start is going to be with Ren Amamiya, or you guys may know him better as Joker. Of course, this is the first raid up unit that's going to be coming to the game, the first limited unit that's going to be available to us on the global version, and it's probably the one unit that I think everybody's going to be going for 100%. I mean, it is the protagonist of Persona 5. Surely everybody goes for it, right? Surely. Now, of course, we're going to break down what this character does. We're going to check out his kit. We're going to see his skills, his awareness. So that means we're going to check out his dupes, constellations, eidolons, depending on what you like to call them. We're going to be taking a look at that. Then we're going to take a look at his best sets, basically, for Revelation and Universe cards, along with his best weapons. And then we're going to look at some team options. Now, of course, if you guys go on to enjoy this video, remember to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for more content, and let me know who you guys would like to see next. Now, I'm planning on making Panther the next release, but you guys can let me know if you want to see somebody else, maybe one of the 4 stars, one of the 5 stars, like Mona or somebody. Let me know in the comments. I'll be sure to do those characters. Now, let's kick things underway. Ren Amamiya, or Joker, is a 5-star character from the Curse element who has the sweeper job assigned to them. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means he is an AoE focused character. He is an AoE damage dealer. He is able to attack multiple enemies at the same time, and while he does have a skill that can target one enemy, you're probably not going to use it that often, and I'll explain why when we take a look at his skills. Now, in this video, we're going to use all of the skills at level 10 because that is what everybody should be getting their character's skill level to. It'll take a little bit of time, especially at the very beginning, but that is where you want to be at, of course. It doesn't include anything regarding mental images, one more basic attack, gun skills, or anything of that sort. These are just primarily his skill 1, skill 2, skill 3, his highlight, and of course his passive skills. Then we're going to take a look at his awareness. But let's kick things underway with, of course, his S1. His S1 is probably the skill that you're going to use most often, as it deals 83% attack as curse damage to all foes and has a 20% chance to inflict a stack of curse. Now that is going to be very, very important for, of course, his S3, which is the third or second move that you're going to use primarily. The third move I was going to say was going to be his highlight. His second skill is going to be one move that you probably don't use that often or at all, because while it does allow you to gain 2 fury compared to skill 1's 1 fury, it is only dealing damage to one enemy, and you only get the fury stacks if there is only one enemy. So this is a good move if you're going up against a solo boss target. But the issue is that it doesn't inflict a debuff, and like I said, that is very important for his third skill, Arsene's Chains. Arsene's Chains deals 74.2% attack as curse damage to all foes, and it increases damage dealt by 25% during an extra turn. It also increases damage dealt by 25% again if the target has any debuff. So keep that in mind. You get 25% extra damage during an extra turn and 25% extra damage if you have a target afflicted with any debuffs. So keep that in mind. Now, we're going to explain why that extra turn is so important and why you're going to be able to see it quite often, especially if you're using your S1 regularly. We'll come on to that later on when we go on to his awareness. His other combat skill and his final combat skill, which is his highlight, deals 205% attack as curse damage to all foes and gains an additional fury. So what this shows me, his S1 to S3 and his highlight skill, his main attacking abilities, is that you do not need to use his highlight that often. You're going to use his highlight whenever important, but his primary damage and probably his significant damage is going to come from his S3, and we'll explain why in just a moment. Revenge is his first passive skill, which allows him to increase his attack by 18% per stack of fury, and then Devour increases damage dealt by 72% during an extra turn. That's why you want to focus on his S3, especially if you can use his S3 during an extra turn, being able to obviously take advantage of all the fury that he has. Of course, we'll take a look at what is his max stacks of fury in just a moment, but also the fact that he's getting such a big boost of damage dealt during an extra turn, basically 97%. Now, I don't know if it's going to be additional or multiplicative, but assuming it is additional, it is 97% in total extra damage dealt during an extra turn, which is insane. Not to mention addition, if the enemy is debuffed, you get an additional 25% extra damage as well. So Arsene's chain is very, very significant to Joker, and you're going to want to use Trickster's Plunder quite often and then follow it up with Arsene's chain. Now, let's take a look at his awareness, because that is where you're going to understand why I'm saying you're going to use his S1 and S3 primarily. So at A0, which is the base level dupe, you don't need extra dupes for this. A0 is what you get when he, is obtained by you. At the end of Joker's turn, gains 1 stack of Fury for every foe that's below 60% HP, up to 5 stacks. At the end of Joker's turn, if he has 3 or more stacks of Fury, and if Joker is not in his own extra turn, he gains 1 extra turn automatically. Joker's buffs or debuffs will not count down when entering extra turn, and then it removes 3 stacks of Fury when own extra turn ends. Each enemy can only give Joker 1 stack of Fury. So there you go. That is why you're going to want to use his S1 and S3 quite often. You're basically getting an extra turn primarily from his awareness, and what that means is that you're going to want to use his S3 during an extra turn no matter what. So keep that in mind. That's going to be super important. His A1 skills allows him to deal extra damage to his main target, 30% more damage to the main target, and 10% more damage to non-main targets through his skill. So basically, if you have an AoE skill, it's kind of like HSR in a way, where you have a central target, right? That central target will get 30% more damage dealt, and then the adjacent characters will get 10% damage dealt more as well. So it's not bad in that regards. His A2 allows him to get extra skill levels on his Doom Pursue ability, which is of course his, if I'm not mistaken, Doom Pursue. It doesn't tell me which one it is, to be quite honest, from what I can tell here, unfortunately, but I assume that's his, basically his level, his S2 if I'm not mistaken, and then his combat skills, which is his highlight, gets an additional +3 as well. And his A3 allows him to reduce the SP cost during an extra turn by 80%, increasing attack by 50% if your SP is not less than 60%. So if you maintain your SP at a high amount, you get an extra attack percent boost. Dreamweaving allows Fearless Rebel and Ominous Omen, if I'm not mistaken. That should be Fearless Rebel, should be Trickster's Plunder, and Ominous Omen should be Phantom Omen is my guess. So A4 is his S1 and S2, you get a +3 to both levels. And then A5 allows basically his highlight to gain an effect boost where he can gain 3 additional Fury. And then A6, Grand Finale, the final dupe for him, immediately executes foe with less than 25% HP up to 250% attack, and this can only trigger once per foe. After using a skill during extra turn, deal 50% attack as curse damage to all foes. Pretty solid. I wouldn't say his dupes are super mandatory by any means of the imagination. Personally, to me, I don't see a reason why you want to go for his dupes crazily, because it just doesn't give you anything too insane, in my personal opinion. Frankly speaking, there's no crazy additional effects being added. There's no crit rate, crit damage, which is what we're going to talk about in just a moment when you get to his build, of course, right? Overall, this feels like it could be a lot better, generally speaking. So I think going for A0, or at least getting only 1 copy and then maybe going for his weapon, might be a smarter idea for a lot of you guys, in all honesty. In my opinion, based on what I'm seeing here, this is obviously like a day 1 character. This is an issue with having a character or a limited character that released on day 1. I mean, if you look at, for example, you look at Genshin with Venti, obviously clearly power crept over time. Even though he was a day 1 character, he's struggled over time. Zila in HSR as well. Yes, she's still pretty decent, but not insane by any means of the imagination, and clearly power crept by so many of the recent characters. Joker is very similar in that situation. He'll still be solid, but I think you can kind of get away with him being just at A0. You're not going to see a major benefit by going for an additional dupe or 2 dupes potentially for him. Unless you're a big fan of Joker, I think it's probably best if you stick with what you've got and then carry on from there, in my personal opinion. Now, we're going to take a look at his build. We're going to see what are his best sets, what are his best options when it comes to, of course, his weapons, his main stats, substats. We're going to take a look at all of that right now. So let's go over to the build side and see what's in store for us. So now, with the suggested card setup, the way I would go about it based on what I've seen in terms of the cards and the effect bonuses that we have, in my opinion, the Ruin/Obsession, everybody's using different names, so it's a bit weird, but I'll have the image of the cards up on your screens right now so you guys can see it. The Ruin card set, in my opinion, is probably the best set for him, because the 2 set effect allows him to get extra curse damage by 10%, and then on the 4 set you get an increase in the skill damage to enemies with debuffs by 20%. Again, because he's got the ability to debuff the enemy, this will work extremely well for him. This set is sort of built for him in a way. On the other side, you want to go for the Departure card, the one with the horse, basically, because it'll allow you to basically, alongside the Ruin card set, allow you to get an increase to your attack by 30% for 3 turns after you defeat an enemy. Now, that is what I would recommend for the card sets. Now, let's take a look at the best stats, basically. What do you want to go for him? What are the best options for him when it comes to the main stats, the sub-stats? Let's take a look at that, basically, together. Now, for the main stat on the Moon card, I would personally go for damage bonus percent. I would go for moon damage, basically, in this. I would go for damage percent, so the elemental percent, I would say, in this situation, damage bonus percent. That is what I would go for. The next thing I would go for on the Star card is crit rate. I would go for crit rate percent because this guy needs it. This guy seriously needs it, in my opinion, especially because of how just lacking he is in terms of crit rate, crit damage, and everything. He is struggling big time on that front. Then on the Planet card, or the Sky card, depending on what you call it, I would go for attack percent. It's as simple as that. It's a very straightforward set, to be quite honest. And in terms of the substats, well, it's pretty simple. Crit rate, crit damage, penetration. That is what you want to go for primarily. Ideally, depending on how the percentages are and everything, from what I've seen, I would ideally go for something like a 50 to 60% crit rate with around a 200% crit damage, in my personal opinion. Again, baseline, this is just, generally something you want to target for. Again, he's got very low help in terms of getting you to crit rate, crit damage, so we're going to have to wait and see on that front. Now, on the weapon side of things, and this is going to be where things get very interesting, is you want to go for, obviously, his main weapon, which is Phoenix Dagger, if you're looking at 5-star options, which increases attack by 30%, and after you gain Will of Rebellion, you get 10% extra curse damage for 2 turns, and then it stacks up to 3 times, and then if you, with 3 or more Will of Rebellion stacks, you get a boost to your next attack by 23%. So the next damage you deal gets a boost of 23%, basically, straightforward. The other option, and the more free-to-play option, I guess, for a lot of you guys, and for myself probably, will be Machete. It increases your attack by 24%, and then when you attack a foe with an ailment, you increase the attack further by 36.2%. That is going to be super, super good, in my personal opinion. Now, when it comes to boosting up his skills, right, what you want to do when you boost up his skills is you probably want to go for skill 3, skill 1, Thief Tactics, or your highlight, and then your skill 2. That is probably going to be how you want to level up your skills if you're looking into identifying what's the direction to go into, and that would be the way to go with Joker. That's the simple answer for Joker. It's a very, very straightforward skill priority set. In terms of skill rotation, it's as simple as using skill 1 as often as possible, gain Will of Rebellions, gain Fury, and then go for skill 3. It's as simple as. I would primarily use your skill 3 during the extra turn, of course, in my personal opinion. I would focus on going for that, basically. That is the direction I would go into. Now, in terms of team options, right, now I want to go over to Pridwin for this, and we're going to take a look at the character options, and we're going to take a look at a couple of things. So we're going to look at medics first and foremost, see what options we have in terms of the medic side of things. Of course, sustain is obviously going to be super, super important in my personal opinion, and obviously this is including some CN characters, so we're going to ignore the CN characters. You have Lufel and Morgana. In my opinion, obviously, I would probably go for Lufel, to be quite honest. A very simple character to gain and a very easy character that you'll have from the very beginning of the game. So Lufel is a great option, of course, as a medic. You could also go for Morgana and also have that as an option. So it's either one of these two, depending on what you pick up at the start. If you're doing your beginner's banner and you go for Morgana or Lufel, oh, up to you, your choice to go for whichever one you want. I would say personally Lufel will probably be the one that most people go for, because they're probably going to pick up Panther from the 50-50 role and not Morgana. But if you do pick up Morgana, stick with Morgana is what I would personally do. That's how I would approach things, to be quite honest. Now, in terms of saboteurs and or buffers, basically strategists, I would personally choose out of the two, I would go for Yaoling Li personally, because the ability to kind of sort of work well together with Joker, being able to use Curse to her advantage as well, I think will be amazing. And also remember in mind and keep in mind that Joker relies on debuffs. So having a debuffer like Yaoling Li is going to be super nice. So going for a Saboteur like Yaoling Li is pretty good in my personal opinion. It's going to be a very good option, and I think a lot of people will probably want to go for it, in all honesty. And then as your navigator, you probably want to go for either Miyu Sahara or Kaio Tomiyama. Again, I would like to learn more about the characters, but I would lean towards Miyu Sahara personally because of the fact of being able to increase the damage that allies get by 2%, being able to get a shield, allowing also you know, just generally a bit more protection for the team, I think will be pretty good as well, honestly speaking. So that's something to keep in mind. I think getting Miyu Sahara will probably be a little bit better than Kaio Tomiyama, but Kaio Tomiyama won't be a bad option as like, oh, I don't have this character, so I may as well get it. I think that'll be also fine. You're not going to really suffer for going either or. You've got two options there, basically. You've got two options there. Another option I have as well, and this is something that you can kind of go for basically bossing side of things and everything. You probably want to consider Shun Kano, purely because he's able to inflict freeze and stuff like that. That's a good option as well. And you are able to also decrease the foe's defense with gun attacks and stuff. So again, works really well with you know, basically Joker's whole MO of making sure you're dealing damage when the enemy is debuffed, right? So I think that works really well with Joker, exceptionally well, to be quite honest. So just keep that in mind. You've got these options going for you going into the game. You've got plethora of options for Joker, and I think he's going to be a very good candidate, to be honest, for a lot of people just to pick up at the start of the game. But obviously we're going to take a look at Panther as well. We're going to take a look at some of the other you know, major characters as well, and see what options we have in terms of, you know, Ryuji, Panther, how good are they as options if you don't manage to get Joker, even though I think most people should be able to get Joker. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Let me know if I missed out anything. Again, this is the first video we're doing. I know it's probably on the biggest character, so I should probably make sure everything is there, but I think I've covered everything. We've gone over him, we've gone over his teams, we've gone over his build, and we've gone over his weapons. So I don't think I'm missing anything else. Let me know in the comment section down below if you guys would like to see more additional information potentially as well, and what information you'd like to see. And of course, along with that, let me know in the comment section down below who you guys would like to see as the next character. Until the next one, guys, hopefully you guys have a lovely rest of your day, evening, afternoon, wherever you may be. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.